Welcome, good afternoon. Welcome faculty, staff, students, alumni, high school students, business partners, and friends to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion panel discussion sponsored by CPS Energy. My name is Dr. Robbie Bishop Monroe, or Dr. Robbie, and I am an assistant professor of accounting at St. Mary's University. This is an impeccable time to host this morally imperative discussion, especially during Hispanic Heritage Month and during our annual St. Mary's University Goode School of Business annual Business Week titled, Ethical Leadership and Innovation in Times of Change. We hope you enjoyed this fruitful discussion on this important topic with our phenomenal moderator and panelists, who I will introduce shortly. This afternoon includes the following order of events. After this welcome, I will invite Father Tobin to bless us with a prayer. Thereafter, we will have the introduction of our interim dean, Stephanie Ward. Thereafter, I will introduce the moderator and the panelists. Afterwards, the panel discussion will be pursued, and then we will take questions from the audience. Please note, due to the high volume of questions, we encourage you to submit all available questions that you may have. However, not all questions will be highlighted, but we will attempt to highlight as many questions as possible. Finally, we will have closing remarks from our interim dean, Dr. Stephanie Ward. Now, I will turn it over to Father Tobin to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Robbie. As we begin our discussion this afternoon, let's just take a moment to pause and remember God's presence as we open our hearts to His love and ask His blessing. And this is a prayer to our Creator, a prayer of Pope Francis in his recent encyclical Fratelli Tutti. I thought it was a beautiful prayer and very appropriate for our discussion this afternoon. O Lord, Father of our human family, you created all human beings equal in dignity. Pour forth into our hearts a fraternal spirit and inspire in us a dream of renewed encounter, dialogue, justice, and peace. Move us to create healthier societies and a more dignified world, a world without hunger, poverty, violence, and war. Bless us with your Holy Spirit as we gather in His presence for this meeting this afternoon. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Tobin. Passionate, committed, and destined for greatness are three words I think of. And those are three words that come to mind when I think of Dr. Stephanie Ward, our interim dean of the St. Mary's Goode School of Business. Interim Dean Ward joined the St. Mary's University family over 15 years ago after earning her doctorate from the University of Houston. She served 8 years as the founder and director of the Goode Scholars Program and has served as the chair of management and marketing department at St. Mary's University. Please welcome our interim dean, Dr. Stephanie Ward.
Thank you so much, Robbie, for that very generous introduction. Welcome, everyone, to this highly anticipated Business Week session. As you know, this year's theme is ethical leadership and innovation during times of change. And I can't think of a more appropriate way to think about leading ethically than to understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This topic has not been discussed enough throughout our history, and unfortunately, our society is lust for it. As the Dalai Lama said, time's always moving on, nothing can stop it. We can't change the past, but we can still learn from it, and we can share the future, creating a more peaceful era by adopting a realistic approach, recognizing that the more compassionate you are, the more you'll find inner peace. As the old saying goes, he who does not know his past has no future. Today, we're going to hear from 3 experts on diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that today we can learn how to change the way we think and act tomorrow. I would like to sincerely thank CPS Energy for sponsoring this panel. Not only has their support made this panel possible, but their contributions have also created a new CPS Energy scholarship that will be awarded next semester. The generosity of all our sponsors is what makes Business Week happen, and our students are greatly benefiting from these sessions. I am looking forward to expanding my understanding during this session. So thank you all for being here. Robbie?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator and our panelists for this event, sponsored by CPS Energy. Our moderator for the afternoon is Thomas Mingler, the president of St. Mary's University. He holds a bachelor's degree from Colleton College and JD degree from the University of Texas School of Law. Before becoming president of St. Mary's University, he served as dean of 2 law schools. Mr. Mingler has served Catholic higher education in a number of ways, including as a member of and chair of the board of directors of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities. Let's welcome President Mingler. Our panelists, the first panelist I'd like to highlight is Paula Goode Williams. President and CEO Paula Goode Williams of CPS Energy leads more than 3,000 team members with the vision she has coined as People First, whereby CPS Energy is evolving its efforts to create and deliver value to its customers, community, and employees into a new age of energy solutions. Ms. Paula Goode Williams has more than 30 years of leadership experience in San Antonio, including being a regional controller for Time Warner's regional office and vice president of finance for Luby's Incorporated. Over her 16 years at CPS Energy, she has progressively worked through the ranks and held various positions such as controller, vice president, and chief administrative officer, and chief financial officer, just to name a few roles. In addition to her role at CPS Energy, she serves on a broad portfolio of boards and committees and is the immediate past chair of the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. Further, Paula was awarded the inaugural Chief Trailblazer of the Year Award by S&P Global Platts for her innovation and commitment to customers and her community. She has an associate's degree from Fine Arts from the San Antonio College. She earned her BBA in accounting from St. Mary's University, as well as finance and accounting MBA from Regis University in Denver, Colorado. She is also a certified public accountant and a chartered global management accountant. Please welcome President and CEO, Paula Goode Williams. Our next panelist is Dr. Shelton J. Goode. Dr. Goode was listed as one of the top 10 diversity and inclusion trailblazers for Forbes magazine. He is the president and chief executive officer of Icarus Consulting, a veteran-owned consulting firm that specializes in helping organizations create inclusive cultures that leverage diversity and inclusion for competitive advantage. He is a business executive with over 20 years of diversity and inclusion HR and higher education experience. He has held various executive positions for companies ranging in size from 300 million to 11 billion. He has developed or implemented talent management programs, performance management systems, sales incentives plans, labor relations strategies, and large-scale culture change initiatives. Dr. Goode was a senior diversity and inclusion executive at the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Agency, Oshkosh Corporation, Pennsylvania Power and Light, Georgia Power, Southern Company, and Alabama Power. Based on the results achieved from these positions, he earned the reputation as a strategic yet results-oriented leader. Dr. Goode is also the author of Diversity Managers, Angels of or Mercy, or Barbarians at the Gate. Let's welcome Dr. Shelton Goode. And our final panelist of the afternoon is Dr. Norma Ramirez Montague. Dr. Ramirez Montague is an associate professor of accounting and the associate dean of the Master of Science in Management program at Wake Forest University. She earned a PhD at the University of South Florida and her BA and Master of Accounting from North Carolina State University. Prior to her pursuing her PhD, she's worked at a public accounting firm and taught accounting at several institutions, including a correctional facility. She's also taught business courses in both English and Spanish. At Wake Forest University, she's taught accounting, auditing courses at the undergraduate and graduate level. Another important item to note is that she's also received awards from the American Accounting Association Award for Innovation in Auditing and Assurance in Education. Also, she's published in renowned journals such as the Journal of Accountancy, Auditing, a Journal of Practice and Theory, Issues in Accounting Education, and Current Issues in Auditing, just to name a few. Outside of work, Professor Montague enjoys spending time with her family. Please give a round of applause and a warm welcome to our moderator and panelists of the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Robbie, and good afternoon, distinguished panelists and all those who are attending this part of Business Week. Let me join Dean Ward, first of all, in especially thanking Paula Gold-Williams and CPS Energy for your generous sponsorship of this panel. Let me also commend the Greehey School of Business and Dean Ward for making this panel a central part of Business Week, and Professor Bishop Monroe for all her excellent effort in organizing our program. For a number of reasons, we're living in unprecedented times where we've seen swift changes in our personal and professional lives. These changes have challenged our decision-making, our ability to adapt and change, and our mindsets. In addition, of course, to all the changes brought on by the pandemic, are purposeful shifts resulting from our nationwide, indeed global, focus on racial justice. Businesses too have been thrust into the spotlight and have been challenged on how they should contribute to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and embrace and embody ethical leadership and innovation during times of change, which is the title of this afternoon's panel. Today's discussion will shed light on how diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what we will shorthand as DE&I, are affecting businesses and how businesses can advance DE&I efforts throughout our communities. So let me begin then by asking our panelists about the three terms, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to ask Paula Gold-Williams first to comment on this question. In your opinion, do these three terms mean the same thing, or are they different? And if they're different, what are the differences captured by the terms diversity, equity, and inclusion?
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for allowing us, CPS Energy, to sponsor this event. And I talked to Tom, and I had a very brief conversation, and when he said that this was something that St. Mary's wanted to do, and it's my alma mater that I'm very proud to be a Rattler. It was an easy conversation. Here we are, and it's at the forefront of everything, and not for the right reasons. I would say that, in answer to your question quickly, they're not the same. I think what's really happened is these issues that we've seen now that we have technology. I mean, I think it's also amazing that St. Mary's is thinking about the view of this through this prism of innovation. And in fact, what we've seen is that digital solutions, cameras and phones, things like that have now changed the landscape to some degree in terms of awareness. Systemic racism didn't start yesterday, didn't start this year. Mr. George Floyd, I call him Mr. because of the sacrifice and the dignity that he deserves that he did not get. And it was the push, but in fact there have been many events across our nation that didn't always have technology and innovation to show really what it looks like. I in general believe that that said, systemic racism is not just about policing and all of the issues that go around it. It's for everyday life. And so once again, St. Mary's being in a community that is vast and wide and diverse, meaning we have a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, people of color, differences in sexual preferences, orientation, all of those things. We reflect that here in San Antonio. But we're all very connected. I was born and raised in this community. I was fortunate to get my undergrad degree from St. Mary's. I cobbled that together and felt like St. Mary's always valued and appreciated diversity on its campus. Diversity for me, and I'm not a PhD, maybe one day I'll grow up and join the ranks, but it's all very practical for me. Diversity is looking at any particular group of people and realizing that they didn't all congregate because they have the same color of skin or the same exact beliefs or the same beginning, and that you can see it and you can really even more so feel it in the conversation. The ability, look, I think we normally like to say, well, I love that person because they went to, they grew up in my neighborhood, or they went to the same school, or they, somehow, they love the same team. And we like similarities, but I think what makes America great and what makes us better human beings is being able to relate to one another without a focus on being similar, and to be appreciative of that. So I think in the aspect of diversity, I think this is absolutely what you can see. Equity, it isn't. I mean, there's this concept of equal rights. We want everyone to have the equal chance, right? And all of the students here and everyone who believes in education, we're doing something special at St. Mary's, because the prism is through values, right? It's everything that we want to do, and we want to do it through our values and ethics. But the equity of it is to give everyone an opportunity and to treat everyone going through the system equally, meaning equal chance. And the last part for me in this inclusion is I think that the inclusion for me is probably the one that resonates, because I think the importance is to make that extra effort, to think about when have you asked different types of people from different backgrounds again to join you, and to not always like tap on the same shoulder every single time out of comfort. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Your goal is to gain that comfort because you want to get to know again that person as a human being. And so those are the things practically that it means for me. And that's the effort that I take when I'm leading. And that's the grace that when it has been afforded to me, and it hasn't always been afforded to me, but when that grace has been afforded to me, that has been where I've been able to take advantage of good opportunity.
Thank you, Paula. Dr. Montague, would you like to add any
Yes,
comments?
absolutely. So I agree with Paula. Diversity to me is defined by the unique characteristics and experiences, perspectives, backgrounds, values that each of us have, and we bring to our relationships, whether those are at work or outside of the work environment. And one major difference that I see between diversity, equity, and inclusion is that while diversity is embedded in the organization, equity and inclusion often has to be created. So there needs to be a lot of intentionality and purpose behind how we make our colleagues, our peers, our students in an academic institution, how we make them feel valued, heard, included. I also agree with the sentiment that equity is about equality, but we have to take it even a step further to say that there are places where we're going to treat everybody equally, but we have to help provide access to each candidate, to each colleague in a different way. So an example would be we could provide equal access to promotion, but how we get people promoted might require different strategies and different supports to meet those individuals' needs. One person might need additional training, another might need additional support. So it's about equality, but also giving opportunity requires equity.
Thank you. Dr. Goode?
Yeah, so having gone third, not much I can add to what we've heard, but I do want to first give a big shout out to Paula and CPS for sponsoring this, for St. Mary's for having the courage to do this. And I have a connection to St. Mary's. I played on the Armed Forces basketball team. And back in 1975, we played against St. Mary's because we thought if we took the best people in the Armed Forces, we could take on a major college. You guys beat us by 52 points, and I never forgot that. So, Paula, don't you laugh. I can remember getting CPS bills back when I was stationed at Lackland Air Force Base and Kelly Air Force Base. I was actually stationed at 4 of the 5 bases there over my 24-year Air Force career. So I can't add, so Paula and Dr. Norma have nailed the definitions. Icarus Consulting has 41 clients across the globe, and I have conversations like this with CEOs, board of directors, the direct reports to CEOs, and I have to make this practical. So Dr. Norma talked about inclusion and the intentionality, and they say, well, they ask me all the time, so give me an example of what you're talking about, or more importantly, how do we know if people feel included? And I say, very simple. You ask them. You give an employee, you have an employee engagement survey every year where you ask your entire employee population to respond to questions, but there's not one question in there that says, I feel as though I'm treated with dignity and respect by my supervisors every day. You're entitled to that. Paul talked about grace and mercy. My goodness, if you're drawing breath on this planet, you're entitled to be treated as a creator, a person created by God, to dignity and respect. Ask people, and then when they will respond to you, don't marginalize their responses. When they've identified barriers to inclusion and the barriers that make them feel like they're not a part of the team. We just witnessed the Los Angeles Lakers win the National Basketball Association Championship. You look at that team, they all wear uniforms. Did they all feel a part of the team? Did they all feel they were afforded the opportunity to contribute what their best skills were to the mission and the effort and the aspirations of the team. Ask people, they will tell you. And then when they tell you, respect them, don't marginalize their responses, and then act on that. I'm encouraging CEOs, boards of directors, chairmen across the country to listen, use this crisis as an opportunity for change, and listen and learn. Listen and learn. Oh, by the way, no one has said it, but let me say it directly. Diversity is not it's not about counting people. It's about making sure people count. And I think we need to take that elephant in the room and make sure we're clear on that. As far as equity, I think an example is best illustrate this concept of equity that Paula and Dr. Norma talked about. Everyone knows that females today in 2020 earn 79 cents for every dollar that their white male counterparts make for producing the same results. Let me say that again. 79 cents for every dollar that a white male counterpart produces for producing the same results. That's unethical. That is unethical, and it's definitely not equitable. So I'm advising my clients, look at your pay equity practices. In fact, look at all your practices. Are there barriers to equity? I had a CEO that says, well, Shelton, I'm trying to keep the lights on. I'm trying to keep all my employees employed. I don't want to furlough anybody. So I think I'm going to have a 20% across the board pay cut. What do you think? I said, that's not equitable. He says, what do you mean? I said, you make seven figures. You want to, a 20% pay cut wouldn't have the same impact as a customer service representative working at CPS that may not be making, I don't know, but to ask a single mother of two, that's a person of color who's not making a living wage to take a 20% pay cut, is not equitable. Leadership should take the burden of the pay cut and protect the frontline employees. He says, I never thought about it that way. I says, well, that's why we're talking. So I just want to give some practical examples to these terms so that people don't think they're the same, because they're not the same. Dr. Megler, they're not the same.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. And Dr. Shelton, not because St. Mary's clobbered you on the basketball court years ago, but because you were spoke last on the first question. I'm going to ask you to speak first. There are many companies and organizations, as you know, that have issued statements recently about DE&I and more importantly, changed their business processes. Why is this important? How does this benefit companies, organizations?
Well, there is empirical evidence that shows that companies that have intentional efforts to leverage the diversity they have in their organizations for competitive advantage, companies that take proactive and intentional efforts to make people feel included and treat them equitably, you're going to outperform your competitors, person for person, process for process. So here's the business case. Business case is open and shut. So the question is, how do you do it? And for those companies who were pushed into enlightenment or pulled into enlightenment by the deaths of Rashard, by Mr. Arbery, by Breonna, and Castile, and Trayvon, I can keep going on and on. For the people who have become more enlightened and are now wanting to do something, I would say issue less statements. Take this opportunity take this crisis of a pandemic that has a health and financial impact combined with the social justice pandemic. Use it as an opportunity, as an opportunity for change. Listen and learn. Listen to be more empathetic. Don't try to fix everything overnight. I emphasize this, especially for those companies who, up until this point, may not have done much, if anything. This is not the time to appear to be reacting to the crises. If you're sincere and you're genuine and you're authentic, then use it as an opportunity for change, and listen to what people are thinking, listen to what they're feeling, listen to the pain, try to be empathetic, admit that you don't know everything, be more comfortable with being uncomfortable because you don't have all the answers, and you'll come out much better ahead.
Thank you. So, Norma?
Sure, thank you. So in my opinion, companies are making innovative changes in favor of DE&I because the things that encompass DE&I are also the things that are essential to a good organization and critical to any organization's business strategy. So as Dr. Shelton mentioned, we've learned a lot from scholarly and industry research. And we've learned that companies with diverse boards, diverse leaders, diverse teams, diverse employees, they outperform companies that are less diverse. So Dr. Shelton gave you some examples, but as an accountant, I need to throw some numbers out at you. So according to a study conducted by McKinsey & Company, diverse companies are 33% more likely to have industry-leading profitability. According to an HBR, Harvard Business Review article, diverse companies are 45% more likely to report a growth in market share over the previous years and 70% more likely to capture new market segments. And according to the New York Times, diverse groups are 58% more accurate in problem solving as compared to more homogeneous groups. So in general, promoting and incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion in your company is going to help you to recruit and retain good people. It's going to help you to establish a culture that's going to bring out the full potential of your employees, and it's going to help everybody achieve their goals. It encourages innovation through collaborative synergy and leverages the diverse perspectives that we've already made the business case for. It sets a good example for your stakeholders, not only internal to your organization, but externally. It brings in clients, it brings in customers at Wake, it brings in diverse students so that we can have richer discussions in our classrooms. So overall, it enhances your organization and your teams, your community's performance. It's important to note that even though many organizations and its leaders have good intentions, there may be gaps between intentions and actual outcomes. And when this happens, and we heard this term a little bit earlier, when this happens, your employees can experience unintended consequences such as tokenism and maybe assimilation. Tokenism happens when the organization intends to be inclusive, but they only bring in a few people from underrepresented groups. In this case, the company might not actually benefit from the diverse perspectives that each of those members feel. And so when employees feel tokenized, they might question, am I here because I'm valued for my talents, because I'm valued for my expertise and my previous experience, or am I here to check a box? Assimilation can have a very similar outcome. So assimilation is when people from underrepresented groups feel like their culture is not the dominant culture. And so they begin to assimilate to that dominant culture so they don't feel like they stand out, so they don't feel like they're different. So it's going to yield the same unintended consequence of people in your organization feeling as though they don't feel as safe to express voice, and you start to lose those diverse perspectives. So it's not just the business case, it's not just about generating benefits, but it's also about being aware and open to recognizing those unintended consequences that might arise. So I agree with what has been said. It's more than just a matter of regulatory compliance. It's more than the business case. It's a social justice issue. And if companies do not incorporate diversity into their strategy, they're going to find it harder to attract top talent, to retain top talent, to break into new markets, innovate, and develop and maintain that good reputation with its internal and external stakeholders.
Paula, you get the last word on this topic.
Okay. I'd be glad to, and I think examples and contexts are really important. Um, for me, I've been in the accounting profession. I was an auditor. I was in food service. I was in cable industry. Finally got into energy. Energy. The issues that we have in San Antonio around how do we get to maintain reliability, maintain affordability, but keep pushing towards increase environmental responsibility, and all of these things that we have to do, to maintain the grid, keep power flowing, are really complex. But again, they're the same issues that my peers, in other continents have, and businesses need to optimize teams. And Dr. Goode talked about, the statistics, all better run, and Dr. Norman talked about, again, the practicality of it, but just consciously, when you think about teamwork in the effort, a lot of times we as individuals think about being the best. We think about being the top performer. About I want to be that person who escalates in the organization and be the winner. When I finally got to the C-suite, I was interviewed by an industrial psychologist, and a lot. But ultimately, I got the job to be the CFO, and he said, "I'm going to give you some advice." And he said, "You may never win again when you get to the C-suite, because it isn't about you. It's really about what your organization is trying to do as a team. It's really about the customers, that customers prefer the value that you bring. And the only way you really achieve it is by the teamwork." And everybody, if everybody wants to win in their own particular way, as much as it sounds great, you won't, because there's an element of optimizing everyone that really, really matters. And then there's this little example where they say you put 10 people in a boat, and you got 2 people rowing really fast. They're your high post. You got 1 or 2 people in the back actually putting a hole in the boat. They got the job, but they're not really committed. And then you got this solid middle of people, and sometimes they row and sometimes they don't. In an organization that doesn't value everyone, it doesn't think about the diversity and the value of everyone, and they try to put all their eggs in the 2 people. 2 people can't win the race. 2 people can work really hard, they'll probably leave you. Or you'll leave yourself, because again, you don't see that everyone's rowing together. But the optimization, that if you can get 80% of your team to 90% of your team all rowing in the same direction, how amazing would that be? And since everybody brings all of these, unique talents, if you're all the same, then your vulnerabilities are going to be the same. If you're different, your vulnerabilities will be different, and you'll be able to pull a team together to compensate for the gaps, compensate for the vulnerabilities, and make yourself a much better and superior team. So it's just logical in terms of business. And the last point I'll make is, as a CEO, I'm constantly amazed on how wonderful the people are in my organization. But sometimes it'll be, I see someone, it's a little different now. Now that we're using virtual, but I might say I see someone, but I really don't know them. Who knows who they are, and who do they work for? Do you spend time with them? Do you ask them questions? Have you figured out what they're passionate about? Have you figured out how you're going to teach them the business? How are you going to make them you really understand that they can be value drivers? And coming out of college, all of you who are preparing to come out of college, you're value drivers. You help the organization again optimize, and being a brand new employee, that kind of puts you in that I don't know what to do yet. But every organization that takes the very first, somebody from the first day, and again values them as individuals, and you're gonna bring their effectiveness out much quicker. You're gonna optimize them, and it just makes all the difference in the world. And I've seen it over and over again, how we have talent all over the place, but they need investment. Again, they need us to be purposeful about getting to know them, to teach them the business, to take in their input, to leaders have to be in learning mode and have a natural, healthy curiosity about how are you doing? How are you feeling today? How was your weekend? Not nosy, but caring. And that ability makes sense to a business because a business, again, needs to optimize all their team members. So it's just logical, and it's ridiculous to leave talented people on the sideline because they don't look like you or, again, have the same religion or all. It's just nonsensical. And so I think businesses are finally saying, and here we are, right? We're at a time where business has to be optimized. If you're going to work through anything, you got to work through it, twice as hard, 3 times as hard when you're having a crisis. And here we are in the middle of a pandemic coupled with global economic pressure. It is all about taking all of your people and making sure that everyone has that diversity of thought, that diversity of opportunity, and that diversity of team to make you the very best team. And so I think businesses are just doing the logical right thing. We need more people. The economy is a little stalled now, but when we come out of it, we'll be hot again. And it's important to keep reinvesting in this effort of the full team.
Dr. Mingler, before you go to the next question, can I take a minute to call out my 2 panelists? Because you remember in the reception, the virtual reception we had before we came live, they both says, no, Dr. Montague says, I'm not an expert, I'm an accounting person. Paula says, I'm not, and these guys are sounding like they're the D&I experts. Man, you guys are, I can't.
No.
Oh no, I'm not gonna let you guys get away with it, but good job. Your comments are spot on. Absolutely, positively spot on. You guys are
I was
nailing it.
thinking the same thing, Sheldon. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Protested too much about their modesty was too great. But I'm going to go to one more question. I mean, you've all commented a little bit on how, to implement, to integrate diversity, equity, how to be inclusive. And I'm going to ask Norma, you get the last question first. If you think about those 3, what do you think is the most challenging among them for any organization to implement?
So for me, I would say inclusion is probably the most challenging because it requires buy-in from the whole team. Diversity and inclusion practices and policies can commonly be imposed from on high, right? With the support of only a few decision makers, which while it could make it easier to institute, it's more of a Band-Aid approach. So too often we seek quick action rather than acknowledging that the problems that we face in our organizations are complex, they're systemic, they're not easily remedied. When what needs to take place is working towards a solution that fully recognizes the problem. And we just, as we've acknowledged, it really takes diverse perspectives to reach the best solution. I would be remiss not to mention that inclusion is made even more difficult during COVID because the virus has really put companies into more of a survival mode, and it often leads us to turn back to bad habits rather than instituting new, better policies. So, I think for me, inclusion is the most challenging.
Thank you. Paula?
I'd have to agree with Dr. Norma. For us, I think that's probably the hardest one because, again, it's something you have to continue to work at. However, I guess what I would add is it kind of matters based upon the situation that you're in, and so and it's almost a chicken and the egg. Like sometimes I'll talk to an executive and they're doing hiring, and And part of it is they're going after a recipe. They're going after, why'd you pick the person you picked? Well, I picked the person because they did that job before. And I'm like, well, there's a ton of people who probably could do the job, but I think you need to look at it reverse. How could you help get someone up to speed? And so we've flipped the dynamic now to be not just about finding someone to fit the niche, but how well a leader is at building talent. We retrain that, and it's ongoing, and you have to have those conversations and be purposeful about inclusion. But I'll even ask, like, is your pool diverse? Do you have any women in the pool? How come I don't see any women in the pool? Do you have anyone of color in the pool? And have you tried somebody who's, I kind of believe in this because I'm an accountant that runs an engineering analytics firm. So I'm a unicorn. And so I just really believe that bright people who have a passion for your organization are the people you want to invest in. So diversity, you want to challenge that. You want to challenge our people creating enough, expanding their pool enough, and stopping that process if it's not. Equity, I look at organizations and I say, you're in the utility industry. We're a male-driven organization. Believe it or not, Dr. Norma, I've been out here a long time, but this was a male-dominated industry. When I started, there were no partners in the accounting profession, no women partners. I mean, and definitely no people of color. And so this equity about giving people that opportunity and not stopping them, right? Like, I think they can be a manager, but let's see that. And I'm like, why would you even say what they could be as a manager? They can be what they want to be. And so again, everybody kind of filling a niche, right? Most of the time we're filling a niche. We want that position, but we don't think about the whole person. And then I think, again, it gets back to the additional comment of that inclusion part, and always tailoring it. And I believe, as Dr. Norman said, tailor it. Don't make it, 3 checks, three roles. Different people need different things and different exposures. What we've done at CPS Energy, we created a whole program about interims. And you can be an interim, and you can also, I stole this from St. Mary's, you could be an executive in residence outside of your profession. And when we do that, we put you in a completely different area of the company. Primarily, we take non-engineers and put them in operational roles, and we take financial people and put them in because we really want them to understand the business. And again, that inclusion, like some people were scratching their heads. Why would she do that? Why would she give an accountant or a policy, a marketing engineer, or someone who's done something completely different and put them in an operations role? Because that's how we make money. That's learning the business. And if we can retrain them to not be like relying on the skills that they were given, but build the skills that they inherently have, then again, the sky's unlimited. And to Dr. Goode, I'm not a ringer. I've just made enough mistakes in my life, and I've been kind of the person who people have treated as an underdog. And I haven't been given, early in my career, I was given the worst assignments, the stuff that nobody wanted. But I still flip those around as opportunity. And I do tell people, take your head out of, keep your head in the game. Don't let your ego get in front of you. Think about the work, ask for opportunity. Don't turn it down, say yes. It may not be the most plum, but what we're doing is we're getting exposure and exposure and exposure and exposure. And the more people become they take your agency up and they abdicate for you, and they say, they believe in what the company's doing. That to me is the equalizer beyond the depth of the color of your skin or those kind of things. So I'm just passionate about it, and I've experienced it. And the very last thing I'm going to say is, systemic racism turns into other things now, right? Other things, what's really happening now is people are saying things like, why are you here? Right? And it's the experiences oftentimes away from work. So again, be empathetic to people with opportunity, because oftentimes, even when they leave the organization, it's worse. So why wouldn't we create the best environment inside our organization and talk to them about their value and listen to their concerns, and let that bathe over you and educate you, and that will make you a much better leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Dr. Shelton, you have the last word here.
Yeah, so for me, without a doubt, it's not even a close second. It's equity. Because you still have a lot, and Paula just spoke to this, you still have a lot of corporations or organizations that are white male dominated, that have put into place practices, policies, procedures, processes, that and behaviors and biases that have benefited them and have had a disparate impact on certain groups and have had unintended consequences. And in order to convince someone that you should take an audit, you should conduct an audit of those processes, of those procedures, of those policies, of those practices, and the unintended consequences, which are having a disparate impact on a group, when they've benefited from that, is that is the toughest part of the work that I do with my clients. Quick example, again, we'll illustrate it. I have a client who is a major client in the commercial real estate space. I'm on the 11th green with the CEO. And he's telling me all the things he wants me to do with the company. And I said, stop it. I said, stop it. And I said, you don't want to change. He says, of course I do. I says, no, you don't. I says, let me give you an example. Eric, your son is about to graduate from Princeton. I'm sorry. Eric, which is your best friend's son, is going to graduate from Princeton. You're going to get a call from your best friend and says, you know, Eric is about to graduate from Princeton. I think he would make a good real estate director. You're going to say, of course, send Eric over. I'm going to talk to him. You're going to talk to Eric. Then you're going to call in, let's call her Pam, and say, Pam, this is my top seller. I want you to mentor and coach Eric, and you're going to make him a director. Now, Pam, you told Pam she is ready to be director in about another year, but you're bringing a person straight off the street out of Princeton, parachute him in because of the privilege and the connection of family, bypassing Pamela, and then you ask Pamela to train him. Now you're telling me, you're a consultant, you want to change. No, you don't. You don't need me. Turn to your best friend and says, if Eric wants to apply for a job, I think he'll make a great director. I think he should start at the bottom. I think he should apply for the job like everybody else. I think he should compete. And if he wins the job, we're going to start him at an associate, and I'm going to have Pam, my top person, train and mentor and coach him. And when he's ready for a director, he's going to compete. And if he gets the job, he gets it. Most companies, my clients included, are not ready for that kind of change. So it's equity. It's equity. That's the change that having people feel better about their jobs. I talk to women all the time. They say, I love my company. I leave my kids at home. I'm working. I'm not taking the time off. I work in a diverse company. But why am I paid in 2020 less than my peer who I outproduce? And even on a good day when we produce the same, I'm still paid less. In 2020, this whole theme of this week is about equity. It's about equity in ethics. That's simply not ethical. You want to change something? Look at your pay practices and pay your producers and start looking at what exists in your company or organization that has women being paid less. And so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Shelton. Thank you all. The easy part of the program, the questions right down the middle, are over, and now we're going to have questions from the audience, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Robbie. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. That was an excellent panel discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, diversity is inviting everyone to the dance. Equity is actually making sure those who want to attend the dance can actually afford a ticket and admission into the dance. Inclusion is asking folks to dance once they're at the dance. So thank you so much. Also, a few key points I heard for businesses to conduct a diversity audit, employee engagement survey, look at the pay equity practices, and also ask for opportunities. So students can ask for opportunities and don't turn any opportunities down. But at this point, I will go over to the question and answer feature to look at one of the first questions that came in. The first question by Jacob Espinosa is, in what ways can workers, employees fight to close the wage gap based on gender and race, since it continues to be an issue in the US and abroad?
I will jump in just a little bit. I mean, I think this is a tough one, but I think overall, as Dr. Goode said, you know, your performance should be the expectation, and you should keep records of the things that you've done. I mean, you kind of believe that everybody notices everything that you do, but you know, maybe sometimes it's with everything going on, they don't. And I think you should be talking to your bosses and your coaches to talk about your performance, and overall expect, you know, and talk about being paid well for a job well done. And I think it goes hand in hand with good values and the things that you have. I have had people, you know, tell me, you know, Paula, yeah, you're new to the role, and so, you know, the person before you is a rock star, and you know, you're new to the role. There's some merit in that to some degree, but in reality, how do you know I'm not a rock star unless you give me a chance? And I've had to make sure again that my performance spoke to that. And I've talked to people. I said, well, you know, look, again, if I'm producing, that's my expectations, and it's still hard. I work for a municipal utility, and so those challenges actually happen in compensation. But I make sure that women doing the same job get the same pay, if not higher, if they're really performing higher. It really, for us, it's about performance. But it is something that you have to be conscious, purposeful, and make sure that you're having a conversation that drives that back to you getting a reward for the hard work that you have. That's my comment.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that.
Okay.
Hard knocks, school of hard knocks, right?
The next question is by Vanessa Chavez, a student at St. Mary's University. Do you ever feel that companies try too hard to make underrepresented groups feel included, that it makes them feel even more secluded? If so, how can we deal with this?
I'll take that one. No, no. Just we gotta be candid here. Companies, organizations are not being proactive or taking intentional actions overall. Now there are some that are. Don't get me wrong, but we still have a lot of work to do. And again, we're not talking about doing anything, giving anyone anything, or doing something for them that they haven't earned or whatever. That is not the case, despite the fact that some people would have you believe that. What we're talking about is if you have a diverse workforce and you're leveraging it for the benefit of the organization, and everyone has their opportunities to contribute to the success of the organization, and they feel connected, they're being treated with dignity and respect. And then if you don't have any barriers that again have unintended consequences, you can't do enough to remove those things. And so, no, I would just say categorically, I do not believe that companies' efforts are so much so that they make women or people of color feel singled out or whatever. Now, I will admit this. On occasion, I have had an individual in my career come up and say, I'm not sure I want to participate in this women's development program because I'm a little bit perceived that, I'm a little bit concerned that I may be perceived by my team as having been given something I didn't deserve. After coaching that individual, she was fine, but I don't think that is I don't think that's a norm that I would ascribe to women or people of color. No.
Thank you.
Yes, and if I could add something, I would agree. I don't think there is a such thing as trying too hard. What I would add, though, is that companies' efforts need to be genuine. So, really, this came up before, really investing in your employees and getting to know them and having conversation with them. So, you know what they're going through, you know the challenges that they are facing. I think that's important. Just saying, oh, here's an affinity group that I think that you might benefit from without really knowing the individual. I have been invited to affinity groups that I don't really identify with because the person never took the time to get to know me. They just know, oh, she's Hispanic, so she must like this. And so I've been stereotyped. So when the outreach is not sincere and genuine, I think it could potentially miss the mark a little bit.
Yeah, I can't, man. I mean, I wish I had said that. I don't, my clients, I do not encourage them to set artificial goals and artificial timelines saying we're going to hire 6 executives by the year 2025. I absolutely tell them don't do that. Now, if you're having difficulty if you think you're having difficulty finding executives to fill roles, I certainly can help you and could recommend some people that could help you expand your recruiting efforts and your sourcing methods. But no, yeah. So, Dr. Norma, thank you for saying that. That was a great point.
The only other thing I would like to add, Dr. Goode talked about this. Like, so I think sometimes women, and I hate generalizations, right? But I heard a professor talk once, a president of a university, and she said, oftentimes you raise our women, our female children for perfection, and we raise our men for bravery. And so this doubt about what does that mean? Should I be offended? And so his example was a great one. But look what happened. She talked to someone, particularly him, and he walked her through this. Don't flip it around as something you can say no. Dr. Norma says, no, I don't want to do that. You have every right to say no. But you also the only thing I would say is be open to opportunity and to be open and see and assume that when it comes to you, even if it feels a little odd, talk to someone you trust, because the opportunity that you have is something that you can make, right? You're just given an opportunity, but you have an opportunity to run with it. Somebody might say, she got the job because she's an African-American female. No, I don't, look, the work has to still be done. So you're going to prove your position up by the work that you do. And you prove your position up by putting your name in the hat and being willing and open to opportunity. And so I do think that sometimes emotionally you can feel like an organization's trying too hard or doing something. Talk to someone, work through that. Opportunity shouldn't, it's what you make it. And I think you can clean up any misguided attempt and make it a really great one if you try.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The questions are rolling in. So the next question from Dr. Prasad in the St. Mary's Greehey School of Business. He says, thank you panelists for presenting your views on this very important topic. The question is, what advice can you give to our students on how to choose firms to work that practice diversity? to work for that practice diversity? For example, are there any metrics that they can use to evaluate firms?
I'm going to turn it over to you all on this one.
I wouldn't. Okay, so I love the question because millennials are doing it. And I don't like using labels, but I would say job seekers of a certain age group are doing that. They are vetting companies. They are asking, what are you doing? What they are looking around the organization and seeing if there's a place in the future for them, and they are asking questions. There are no, and then so I think the question is, what sort of answers should students be looking for? Organizations that can clearly articulate that they are taking intentional efforts and being proactive about how they recruit, about how they interview, about how they hire, about how they develop, about how they retain, and more importantly, how do they involve employees? For an example, if you are going to be highly recruited out of St. Mary's Law, only to be told when you get to organization X, you just got here, sit down, hush, we'll show you how it's done here. What does that tell you about that organization? They went through all that effort to bring you on board and recruit you, only to make sure to bring you there and force you to assimilate. And obviously that's not going to make you feel included. So I would say, this is what I would say. I have 2 millennial sons, both are military officers. They had no problem in vetting. They had choices to go to some of the top tech firms or to serve their country. They had, and they asked the questions. The one question they didn't ask me was, Daddy, what should I ask them? They knew exactly what they were looking for. So I would say to the good doctor who asked that question, trust these students. They know what they want. They know exactly which companies they don't want to go work for. And my sons told me, Daddy, I'm not going to work for it. I can't say the company, but some of the places you work, that's not going to work for me. So they decided to go serve their country, and I couldn't be prouder of them.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. It requires more than just going on a website and familiarizing yourself with a firm's DE&I policies and practices, because what you want to do is ask the right questions to determine how they live those policies and practices. Flip the interview on them.
Yep.
Say, give me an example of a time where you did not feel included, or give me an example of a time where you observed a microaggression, or give me an example and how did you handle it? How does your firm handle it? What are the resources that they provide to you? So ask those meaningful questions to determine, do they practice what they preach?
The only thing I would add, because the metric thing, we don't have metrics, and to Dr. Goode's point, it's not about the numbers. I mean, you're exactly right. So trying to find a metric when here we are in the world with this injustice, and regardless, I mean, we don't want to have, this is my view, it's not about the reverse of it, right? I think organizations are trying to make themselves better. And I've been in a lot of organizations where I was the only African American. I was the only African American female, and that was the job. But I didn't look at it like that was the most horrible place. I looked at it, was it a successful place that was interested in me, and what could I do? I might be the first one, but they have, to Dr. Norma's point, they have an approach that their empathy and their desire to be a better organization matters, and you can help them with that realization. And so some organizations do have it, they will have it, and that's great. But there's a lot of other organizations out there that want to hire and want to make those differences. And there are CEOs on the golf course being educated about what it really, really looks like. And those, and you can tell, and you ask the right questions. It isn't the metrics, it's really about how is that firm gonna effectuate that change and include you and make sure that you feel comfortable and that you have that opportunity. So I don't see that you can go out and just look at everybody's metric and say, well, what's your ratios? You're always working on it. You're always working. You're never done. You're always working on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next question comes from student Andrick Fur. He's a student at St. Mary's University. Dr. Shelton Goode mentioned becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable. This statement really caught my attention. My question is, what is your best advice in terms of achieving this in the workplace?
Yeah, so thank you for that. Great question, especially coming from a student. So this is the number one discussion I'm having with companies, and many of them are multinational, is these companies are led by drivers. So if you were to use Myers-Briggs type indicator, it would be ENTJ. If you use the DISC profile, they would be high Ds or type A's, or whatever label you want to give them. But these people get paid big money, like Paula, to solve problems and make decisions. You see a problem, you fix it, using a number of different ways. What I'm telling leaders now is, in this current environment, take a 3-second pause and listen. An issue comes up, just listen. Just see if there's some empathy that you can derive and learn. And then if there is, in the discussion, some actionable items that need to be fixed or addressed, delegate that. You don't have to go lean into your nature, which is you be the one that fix everything. And that's difficult. That's uncomfortable for people. It's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to not immediately try to come up with a cost-effective, efficient, sustainable solution right away. And so that's where the discomfort comes. And so I'm informing, encouraging my clients, especially the CEOs who are running these organizations, that the new currency of leadership, the new currency, it's like the Bitcoin, is authenticity. And in order to be authentic, you have to be transparent. The key ingredient in transparency is vulnerability. What does that look like? It looks like saying, I don't have all the answers. I don't know. This is how I'm feeling. I'm struggling with that too. Let me get back to you. Or can I count on you to help me resolve that, and not try to appear to be the superhuman that your nature wants you to be. So they have to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that uncomfortable comes with be vulnerable. Admit that I don't have all the answers. Are you kidding me, Dr. Goode? Not on your life. And I'm telling you, fine, as we shift to this new currency, you're going to not be perceived as being authentic. You're going to be perceived in a way in which is unintended. So it's hard, but I'm working with them. I'm letting them win more at golf.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So I'll try to see what we have here. Okay, so this is from Jacqueline Gutierrez. And also there's a separate question from Professor Cody Cox. So Jacqueline Gutierrez states, as an industrial organizational psychology student, what advice would you give me on the topic? And I'm going to mention Dr. Cox's question as well, because it's similar. Thank you so much for your time in discussing your views on this amazing topic. I'm interested in hearing about what your views are on diversity training, and what diversity training programs have you seen that were successful? So advice for an industrial psychology student, and any advice on what you've seen that works well for diversity training.
Yeah, so I'll try to make a quick tie between this idea of vulnerability and psychology. And it's so important to one of the things that Dr. Goode mentioned before we started was that we had a little pre-chat, and I volunteered that I'm not an authority on this topic. And I think that showing that vulnerability is an example of how we can establish this sense of psychological safety when we have conversations with others who may be have more expertise in the field. But as a psychology student, I think it'd be fascinating to focus on helping others become more aware of their cognitive biases, their implicit biases that can really influence our actions, and we don't even know them.
I would offer a couple of things. I mean, I think I'm not an industrial psychology major, but I will say this: I feel like the psychology of people and the appreciation of being a student of human behavior, it matters, right? So someone who has that education and ability to emotionally handle other workers who might have biases or lack exposure or experience, and the maturity that you could bring in terms of understanding why people behave the way they do, talking, confronting things constructively, expressing yourself. I think, again, all those things will come with you. And I think it's key in business to have really good communication. We have a competency that we value here. It came from my predecessor, Dole Beneby, and competency is intrusiveness. And it was really hard because everybody wanted, you want to be super polite, and then you'll say, I wish I would have said something, or you don't talk about how people are working in the workforce and calling out behavior and activities, and including accountability of just executing well, right? Dr. Goode talked about you can't do it all. You got to trust people, but you have to create that level of accountability and the ability, again, to talk about how work is really happening. You don't have to solve every issue. You can delegate it, but you can also, again, make sure that people are striving for excellence. And even as a CEO, I don't have any problem saying I messed that up. That was a bad call. I was wrong. And letting my people hear that and making it safe for them to do the very best they can, but sometimes things fail. And then we embrace that failure and learn more from that. And every day of the week, we'll learn more from our failures than we will do from nonchalantly valuing the successes that we have. And as far as training is concerned, I don't know if I've found this great training. I think training has to be coupled with the experience and, again, the views of what did you learn, and so I like my leaders to go to the training with their people, and then talk about their accountability to correct behavior and catch it early before it actually becomes some type of harassment or discounting, devaluing, anything like that. We had to go through a real discussion about kidding around. Everybody think, oh, I was just kidding. Well, no, you can't kid about people's personal background and things like that. And you've got to call those things out so that everyone feels safe. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. So less than a minute to go, but Dr. Goode, a final word on this question before I turn it over to Interim Dean Stephanie Ward.
Yeah, so first, thanks to, again, to CPS, to St. Mary's, to the students, the faculty, high school students, external stakeholders for participating. Anyone that has additional questions that we can't answer, that you want me to answer, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to do that. As far as this specific question, at Icarus Consulting, we specialize and focus on training that is skills-based. We do not try to change people's hearts and minds. What we try to do is help managers be able to manage diverse work teams and create inclusive workplaces by helping them be aware of some of the things that could be impeding their problem-solving ability, their decision-making skills, their ability to resolve conflicts or communicate, whether they be unconscious biases that are having unintended consequences, or whether it's because they're just not comfortable managing people that are different than them. So we are evangelical about skills-based training and not training that's designed to try to change people's hearts and minds. And again, thank you, Robbie, for a great panel.
Thank you. President Thomas Mingler, President and CEO Paula Goode Williams, Dr. Shelton Goode, and Dr. Norma Montague, thank you so much for this diversity, equity, and inclusion panel discussion. Now I will turn it over to Interim Dean Stephanie Ward.
Thank you so much, everyone, panelists. This has been a fantastic session and a wonderful discussion. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your insights and your knowledge. I know I have learned so much from you, not only about how to lead, but also just how to be a really good colleague with my peers and my friends that I work with day in and day out, and just learning to be real with each other. I think that that's so very important. I also want to thank President Mingler for moderating the session. Your thoughtful attention to the questions provided us all many, many things to think about. So thank you very much for that as well. And thank you, Dr. Robbie, for cultivating this session and for all of the support of all the faculty and the students and especially the staff. You make these sessions possible. To everyone who attended the session today, thank you for being here. And I hope that you will take what you have learned today and create new thought and action for yourself and others tomorrow. That is how ethical leadership happens, by making the world a more equal and inclusive world for everyone. So hope to see you at the sessions tomorrow as we continue to explore how to ethically lead and innovate during uncertain times. Our first session tomorrow, being Merriness During Times of Change, will begin at 9:20. Hope to see you there. Thank you again very much for this wonderful session.